Powered by nuclear energy.
Hi, this is DJ Mondo, and welcome back to another episode of the Atomic Luau and another sub-episode of SketchLab with DJ Mondo. This is episode 10 of SketchLab. If you've been following along, you'll know that I've been doing a art project on the Apple iPad using the Apple Pencil and an application called Procreate. I'm doing a sketch from preliminary sketches to the finished art product, and the project is an homage to the cover of the Incredible Hulk #1, originally drawn by Jack Kirby back in the 1960s. But I'm doing an homage using my own characters, DJ Mondo and his robot gorilla companion, Dr. Sim. And but before I jump back into that drawing, now we left off last time in the midst of that drawing. We started doing the coloring on some of the layers there. But before I jump back into that, I want to talk a little bit more about the capabilities of the application Procreate, which has recently added animation features. Now, I'm really interested in animation. I'm actually trying to learn to animate myself. I'm not very good at it, but it is fun doing it on some of the iPad apps that are available now, and it really did not have all of these capabilities previously, and it works out particularly well on the Apple iPad, particularly with the application on Procreate. Procreate is good for making the small animations, but there are other applications like Clip Studio Paint, Clip Studio Pro that has even more animation features. But I wanted to start off before I jumped back into the main drawing. To start off by showing a little animation that I did on Procreate. You'll notice here that I've got a drawing of DJ Mondo and a robot. Apparently he's fighting a robot, but the robot is firing a bunch of little missiles. You don't want to really call them missiles. They're more like beans, and DJ Mondo is holding up his energy shield. But this is an example of what you can do with Procreate, basically here in this minor animation here, is you've got a foreground layer, which is DJ Mondo's layer, and you've got a background layer, which is where the robot is standing. And the only thing that's really animated here is those little beam missiles that are flying out of the robot there and splashing against DJ Mondo's shield. That little explosion at the end is the one that's animated as well. Down at the bottom of the screen there, you can see the frames as they're flying by for the that make up the animation. If I pause it here, you can see that there's basically and show you what the layers look like here. We've got a foreground layer where DJ Mondo is standing, and we can turn that on and off. And we've got a background layer where the robot is standing, and we have about 21 frames in the middle that constitute all of those little beam missiles that are flying out of the robot. And that's really how you can create these minor animations in Procreate. It gives you the ability to to put a foreground, a background, and then animate all of the frames in between. Again, not as extensive features as some of the other applications like Clip Studio Paint or Clip Studio Pro, but you can do animated GIFs and things like that with it if you know what you're doing. Again, I'm pretty new at animation, but I at least managed to make this little wonky animation here based on some of my own drawings here, and I can see this, being used for maybe more complex drawings in the foreground layer and the background layer, and then just using it to animate something in between. Let's say you want to animate fire or something like that, but your other foreground and background layers kind of remain static. You can still do some I can still imagine you doing some pretty amazing things with this application. But I just wanted to show that at the beginning, to show that I'm still kind of working on animations even in this crude manner right here, and hopefully I'll incorporate more of those into the drawings pretty soon. But I thought this is quite fun. You can kind of lose yourself into making all of those frames. It is incredibly hard work. Seriously, you're not going to see this in movie theaters anytime soon. But that right there is your minor storyboard for the DJ Mondo story. So enjoy it. Anyway, let's move on to the main drawing, and we'll pick up where we left off. Back into the gallery here. And as you can see, that's the page that I'm working from, that I'm doing the homage to. That's Jack Kirby's issue number 1 of The Incredible Hulk, back when comic books cost 12 cents. And so, layer by layer, I can show you the layers that I'm working on for the actual homage here. I'm just going to resize this so it all fits on the screen here. The background layer was going to be a crowd scene. In front of that layer was DJ Mondo's robot companion, who is partially colored and shaded at the moment. On top of that was DJ Mondo himself, who is whipping up the crowd. And in front of that is DJ Mondo's DJ booth with his microphone and his laptop. And on top of that is going to be the logos for the comic book with all of the appropriate attraction word balloons and things like that. Really spectacular type word balloons to attract you to all of the fantastic events that you're going to see inside of the comic book, and that's basically it right there. Again, those will all be refined later on. Everything started off as these really wonky preliminary sketches, and we cleaned them up pretty good. So I'm going to go back to the robot gorilla and pick up where we left off there. One of the things that I did here, let's turn off those logos and go back to the robot gorilla here. And one of the things that I did there was while I was working was to put a gray background on the drawing itself, because a lot of the items on in the drawing have their kind of a white base to them, like the bolts that are in the robot gorilla here are chrome, so they're going to be kind of white as a base, but with some highlights on it to let you know where the edges are and what kind of light is reflecting. Typically, if you're doing chrome, it's going to be kind of blue at the top and kind of ground, whatever color your ground is going to be at near the bottom, because it's reflecting the sky and also reflecting the ground. There's also some goofiness going on here with perspectives. I mean, if you look at his left arm here, it looks like the arm is turned towards you, because you've got this bolt that goes through his elbow here, where you can see the ellipse that makes up the bolt, but it's flat on the inside bolt here, which should be an ellipse as well. So I might go ahead and clean that up, but who knows? And really, who cares if it's in the background? I'm just kind of doing a crude drawing here, and let's pretend it's the 1960s, when comic books didn't have to be all that clean and precise. But I might do some revamping of the shadows on this. I really don't like the way the shadow falls on this the right shoulder here, so I might clean that up a little bit. And this is the shadow layer right here so we can turn that on and off, and if we work in there, we can refine that shadow. So let's actually let's go ahead and do that and see if we can go ahead and refine that shadow on the right shoulder here, because I think it should be more spherical. I think it's cutting up the top a little bit too much here. So it should be relatively the same shape as the left arm, as the left shoulder. So let's go in and just do a bit of erase in here and just reshape it to this here. I think that's more appropriate for that shadow. There are any of the shadows that we need to work into here. I don't really like the shape of the shadow around this collar here. That should fit the ellipse of that collar. So let's see if we can reshape that. Let's go in here. I think that shadow would be more of this shape right here. A cool thing about this is you can just go ahead and draw this in. And fill. There we go. That's a bit more appropriate there. Love it. And let's try to give some depth to this this chest ornament the same way. Oops. Back in. Let's clean that up a little bit. Clean it up. And how about a little under this ridge at the top here? Drag and drop. And the reason it's the drag and drop shadow is coming in transparent is because of the transparency that I set on that shadow layer that I'm working in here. You can adjust the opacity of the layer, light and dark right here, but I had it at about this much right here, depending on how bright you want your external light to seem. What else can we do here? I think maybe we'll give a little bit more depth to this part of the chest over here the same way. Drag and drop. There we go. Juts out a little bit further. And all the shadows are really kind of at your discretion. You know, you can choose to put in a shadow, or you can choose to leave it out entirely. And again, it's all up to you, whatever you think looks more effective. So, but yeah, that's our shadow layer there. I think that's enough shadow for now. I might start working into the highlights on the gorilla's face. We've got some blue on the edges here of his face to kind of simulate the reflected light from the lights on the inside of his collar, and from the power couplings on his back and the reactor on his chest. You don't want to overdo it with those reflections, but let's see what we can do here. And again, thing about Procreate is that you can choose your color. You'll notice up here in the upper right hand corner of the screen, that's the color that you're working with here over on the extreme upper right. And you can change that color. You can choose the color picker just by tapping your finger, and you'll see that little circle appears, and whatever you hover over, that will be the color that's chosen for you. So for example, if I wanted to choose that orange, I can just tap and hold, or if I can go back to that blue, just tap and hold, and then release over the color that you want to choose. What was I working in here? I was working with a studio pen. Let's change to a paintbrush here, a round brush, and let's see if I can put in some reflected lights from the surrounding area. Make sure we're working in the right layer first. You probably should name your layers, name your sub layers, even though they're even though that's kind of a hassle. And actually, I kind of want to experiment here with the highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly make another layer above the color layer that I'm working in. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a layer, because I don't want to work in that layer itself, in the color layer itself, until I'm sure I'm getting the effect that I want. So you can cheat by adding another layer real quick, and then once you work in that layer, if it looks good, just merge that layer down into the existing color layer that you're working with, and that way you don't have to mess up the layer that you want. And if you're not getting the effect that you want, just trash the layer that you're working with and start all over again. So nope, don't like that. Change the size of that brush. Size down, opacity up. So there we go. It's a little bright, but not bad, not too terrible. But that'll kind of represent that reflected light on his ear. There we go. Give him a little bit more substance here. At least it looks like yeah. There you go. You can go so far as to work into the side of his nose. There you go. Then you pull back. It seems to come together when you zoom out a little bit. So yeah, not too bad. Alright, and let's see what we can do to pull his face out a little bit more. I'm going to put some highlights on his forehead and on his brow. So we're going to choose this color that's already highlighted here, but then add a little bit of white to that and see if we can work in again and just not go too overboard with the highlights here. There we go. That'll make his face pop a little bit more, and then let's highlight even more here, but again, not to overdo that because we just want it at the extreme top here. There we go. And again, zoom out. It seems to come together again. Let's go back down and work the other side of the face here. See if it pops a little bit more on this side. That way we don't anything to separate it a little bit from the background. Yeah, I like it. All right, and again, same thing we were talking about before. Those are the changes that we made. The ones I'm turning on and off. Those are the changes that we made that are in their own layer above the color layer that we're normally working in. And so then once we decide that we like them, we take them and we merge them down right into that color layer. Now it's all the same layer. So here we go. Okay, great. Alright, so now we want our armor to pop a little bit here. So let's work into the armor and choose that. Good. I don't want it to look, I don't want the highlights to look too pink on the armor here, but let's see how it goes. I say we mask off a few things here and start working on the top layer here. And what kind of brush do we want? Let's do a, I don't know, I want the color to be kind of flat. Let's see. I don't like this. I'm not very good at this here. Doesn't pop enough. Let's undo it. And let's get color a little bit higher. And drag and drop. Actually, let's do that same cheat that we did before. Go ahead and create an extra layer on top until we're sure that it looks good, and then we can start merging down. So again, that's our highlight area. Drag and drop. Highlight. Drag and drop. And don't know about this. Highlight, drag and drop. Just remembered, as always, I forgot to set a timer. Normally I set a timer for 30 minutes, but since I've been working here, I'm just going to go ahead and set it for 20. That way we don't work into the night here. So, again, no, one more time. Bumps right up against there. Drag and drop. Not sure if I like it, but you know what? So what? Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be fun. So back in there. Drag and drop. Actually, it's starting to grow on me. I actually like it. How about some highlights on this side? Should be more even. Drag and drop in there. Here we go. And I'm going to keep the highlights mostly on the gorilla's right side because the light is coming from the upper left hand side of the drawing here. So drag and drop in there. There we go. That's a little better. All right. here, some here, and some here. Here we go. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it for the main highlights there. I might work a little bit more into those, but that ought to do it. Yeah, we need to take a screenshot of that. That's pretty cool. I'm actually pretty proud of that. I think I might post this on Instagram later. Check me out on Instagram, DJ Mondo's Rave. Here we go. So now, okay, great. What we're going to do eventually is work above the ink layer, the black layer, and work into the hair. I'm going to go back in with a finer point and start working in the ink layer and refine the hair a little bit, you know, so a little bit more fuzzy on the ends. But then I'm going to work above that hair layer and actually put some highlights in there so we can see some reflected light on his hair. That'll make the head pop out a little bit more. So, and actually let's do that right now. Let's go after we merge these highlights down. And again, those are our highlights, just to remind you. Those edges right there. I'm going to go ahead and I've decided I like them. I'm going to merge them down into the main color layer. And there they are. All right, so now this is our ink layer for him. So we're going to go into the ink layer. And I'm going to switch to straight black, go back in with a nice thin technical pen, perhaps, and refine the hair a little bit more. Here we go. So, how does our technical pen look? Not bad. There you go. So it doesn't look like, so it doesn't have such a straight edge for a beard there. Here you go. He's got his nice little goatee. And I like giving the gorilla, sometimes I give him this kind of Elvis style haircut. That kind of pompadour, because he's kind of 1950s style. 1950s style gorilla. There we go. And but he likes to keep his beard nice and sharp for the ladies. Sharp dressed man. Every girl's crazy about a sharp dressed man. There we go. And you can go ahead and like fill those areas. Like when you're inking, go ahead and fill those areas with straight black and then come back in with a, you know, when you're doing hair, come back in and do those little hair highlights there. So that he's got some kind of texture to simulate that texture. Yeah, and I just need a couple of strokes at the end here to kind of define the shape and to make it look like it's just a little bit fuzzy. Okay, great. Here we go. Oh, much better. And same thing for the forehead. I think his brow comes down a little bit further. Okay, great. Oh, much better. I think I'll post this on Instagram. And he really needs some highlights on his eyes. Maybe blue, or I'll go back to that later. But let's take another screenshot of here we go. Yeah, it kind of comes together when you step back from the face, you know. And I really kind of like the way those highlights are going there on the face. So let's do that. I'm gonna go back into the color layer. Choose some more blue from that layer, and go in and work on his eyes. I wonder if that's too weird. The blue on his eyes kind of represents, no, I don't think it's too weird. I think it's great. There you go. It's that light behind his eyes that's the same as the light on his chest. It's all 0-point energy from his internal nuclear reactor. All right, and let's get some let's finish the highlights on the chrome portions of his suit, and by then we may have some time to move on to some other things here. Maybe because he's gonna have racing stripes. He's gonna have racing stripes on his armor. Racing stripe highlights on his armor. So let's choose this, and let's get us a nice airbrush, and a soft airbrush up a little bit. Take the opacity down some, and let's go into and highlight this, and then start on top of that, and that off. Here we go. And again, sky versus ground. Mask it off. Come back in with the airbrush. With a nice soft airbrush. And we'll do the same thing for the lower portions of it. Choose that. And I think I didn't do this last time, so let's. Try that again. And again from the bottom. There we go. Let's do this. Do the same thing on the other side. Oops, I didn't do this side either. Highlight. Mask it off, and I'm just doing this, and I'm doing this so fast here. It also gives me a chance to kind of work on my speed. You know, I was never really a concept artist, but my impression was that whenever you were working as a professional, people wanted you to work very fast to give them these concepts. I guess if you're working for some place like, one of the big design houses, or somebody who works on movies or something like that, they want you to be very fast when you draw and give those concepts. Me, I draw really slow, so I'd probably never have a job like that. And I like to kind of take my time with it and goof around with it and experiment with it before before I show it, but this is kind of an exercise of doing things pretty quickly and sloppily, so that I don't spend all of my time just refining and refining. And I think that's one of the things that artists fall into, is like they never know, like, when is it finished? People will ask you, when do you know something is finished? Well, you don't. When you feel like it's finished, or when you've said all that you can say with it, but young artists particularly are always kind of obsessed with when something is finished. I got a crap ton of half finished drawings all over the place in sketchbooks and and even filling up this iPad, so you don't know when something's finished, but you do know when something looks good, and when you think when you think you've hit something, or kind of captured something that's kind of fun, or at least or at least gives the impression that you're trying to give. So, all right, so there you go. There's my Hulk. He's going to be the equivalent of the Hulk in the final drawing. So yeah, not too bad. Now we're going to leave room for special effects like the glow. These areas where on his arms, of those open portals and things on his arms, are going to be where the light is shining out of there. And so I want to give the impression that it's glowing, and I guess that will take blue highlights on other things, on other objects in the drawing, are going to give that impression. So for now, let's leave that, and I say we move on to finishing off, starting the colors for DJ Mondo. So let's see where we are with him. I'm going to turn off Mr. Gorilla for a moment. Now let's go back in with DJ Mondo. And there he is. So we're going to need a decent skin tone for Mondo. So let's see what it looks like. Let's see what works here. I'm going to turn on the... Oops. I'm going to turn on the... Doggone it, Gorilla. Get out of here. All right, I'm going to turn on the... those are the inks for DJ Mondo. I'm going to create a reference layer. I'm going to turn that into the reference layer, meaning that that no matter what layer you're working in, the ink layer is going to be the reference layer. So whenever I lay down color, it's going to be stopped by the ink layer. So for example, if I'm in the color layer, what layer is this? That's the shadow layer. And this is the sketch layer. I'm going to lay down another layer on top of that. This is going to be our color layer. So no matter what layer I'm working in, the ink layer is going to be the reference layer. So if I use the bucket tool to... DJ Mondo's ink layer is going to be the reference layer, as a matter of fact. So even if I move to another object in the drawing here, as long as I use the bucket tool, it's going to be stopped by the DJ Mondo's ink layer, which of course is the reference layer here. So no matter what layer you're working in, the reference layer sets your parameters when you drop a paint bucket or something. So for example, if I drop this onto the color layer, it gets stopped by the ink layer here. And what kind of do I have here? Let's switch to the inking tool and the studio pen here. So once I drop that, filled up the reference tool, and then I usually go in and fill out those little areas with the pen tool. So there we go. These are all of the skin tones here. I don't know if the skin tone is perfect, but so what? I'll refine it later if necessary. And you'll notice that it is being stopped by the inks. And so what I'll do is I'll just go in and fill in those little areas with a pen tool. It's all good. Yeah, I don't know. He's way too orange. Got that orange look about him. He must be using that bronzer. Again, clean that up. Drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop. So easy to lay down flat color in this application. And zoom out. And there's your basic skin tone. Don't know if I like it, but you know what? So what? Alright. DJ Mondo also has blue highlights for a couple of things here, like the field generators on the backs of his hands and the belt that he has. See how much time we got left here. Oh, we're coming up on time. So let's get our, I'm gonna choose, I want him to have the same reference color as the gorilla here. So let's choose the blue from the gorilla. And then get rid of him. Go back to DJ Mondo's color layer and fill in some of those colored highlights there. Because he's got that same blue glow that the gorilla has. Also, a little thing here I like to do is like the inside of his clothes have that same glow as well. For some reason he's like glowing out of those. And then again, I'll work on top of the ink layer in order to put more highlights in there, because he has stripes on his t-shirt, much like the same blue glow that he has on his belt. And the items on his hands are silver, so the bands, that is, around his wrists are silver. So that should be blue. Whoop. Overboard. Yeah, we don't have to drag and drop. Let's just draw it in. And that's time. All right, so this is where we got with DJ Mondo. So far, so good. And things that we need to do going forward is that the bands on his wrist are going to be chrome. The tips of his boots are chrome as well. The tips and the heels of his boots are chrome as well, so I'm going to work on those. He's also got a blue glow on his eyes, but again, that'll be above the ink layer, so I'm going to save that for a little while here. But at the end of these, what I like to do is I like to run the Procreate. Actually preserves all of the strokes of everything that you put down, and at the end what I like to do is run the a little movie of all of the strokes that I put down here, so that we can see all of the work that's been done so far. So let's do that and do a time-lapse replay from the beginning, from the very, very rough drawings at the beginning, drawing each element and then resizing it and refining it. And of course, nothing here is written in stone. It all gets moved later. The fun part will be the crowd scene. I really don't like drawing crowds. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to get a reference photo and import it into Procreate, which you can do that, and then maybe discolor it and distort it and ink over it so that it looks like there's a crowd behind him. And it'll be set back. It doesn't have to be very distinct and have a whole lot of detail in it. But I'm actually kind of looking forward to that part too. So yeah, there's our gorilla. refined. I think I worked on the leg. The left leg is way bigger. I mean, the right leg's way bigger than the left leg on the gorilla there. So I moved that around a little bit, probably during the inking process. Yep, decided to redraw it. Came back in, did some more drawings on DJ Mondo. It's a whole lot of turning on and off layers here. When you see that flickering, that's essentially what I'm doing here. It actually saves everything that you do here, which I think is great. That's one feature that I wish Clip Studio Paint had, which I don't think it does, but that's okay. So again, moving everything into place. I worked a little bit on that crowd, decided that I hated it. But like I said, there's always another solution here. I'm probably not going to do my own lettering either, but you do have those distortion features. So if I did type in my title, I can then distort it to make it look like that, you know, that crazy distorted science fiction title look. This is the inking section. Coming in with the thicker inks. I really like to kind of ink with like a thick marker, kind of like in that Jack Kirby style too. His inks were always really thick on the edges. He had a lot of drawings that were really thick on the edges. Is the more recognizable of his styles. Jack Kirby went through actually several styles of drawing over his career. But everybody remembers him for the really thick lines that he used to put on the edges of his drawings, and also for that technology that he did. Those kind of combinations of like godlike characters and technology that you see in a lot of the comic books, particularly things like Thor or the Eternals. But that's crazy stuff. Which I love that. I love the combination of the mysticism and technology at the same time. So again, initially putting on their flats, but I went with a shadow layer first in order to kind of give it the 3D impression. Put that gray background in so that I can distinguish those areas that are going to be mostly white, like the chrome bolts on the gorilla. And that's just, again, as a point of reference here. And again, refine some of the layers, throwing in our highlights, and then eventually moving on to our chrome highlights and masking them off. And then there we are at DJ Mondo, and beginning to put in the blue highlights on DJ Mondo. And that's where we left off. So we'll pick up here in the next episode. Until then, thanks for watching. If you are watching, I don't know if you've been following from the beginning. I did try to live stream these. I don't live stream them anymore for quality control, and also, let's face facts, nobody was really watching the live stream anyway. So I'm essentially talking to myself. But if you're listening, I really appreciate that. Check out the links down below the video. I'm going to post this on YouTube, so check out the links down below the video to all of my website, djmondosrave.com, and my social media sites like Instagram. I post a lot of work on Instagram, and also little music clips and stuff like that I do for from the iPad, and also some of the other DJ equipment that I work on. So thanks for watching, and check me out on Instagram. And like and subscribe. Every little bit counts. And if you do like it, leave me a comment. And also let me know if you do any artwork. Let me know that as well. I would be interested in seeing it. So this is DJ Mondo. Thanks again for watching. This is episode 10 of SketchLab. And I'll see you next week with the next episode. Thanks. Bye.